Comrades, I am Admiral Andre, and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program. It's a Saturday night, and I am going to be doing a somewhat different video now. This will be just me messing around in Kerbal Space Program. So I'm not going to have a specific agenda now, or a recreation, or a specific mission, or something like that. Last night I was toying around in KSP with some solid rockets, and I was thinking it might be interesting if we imagine a scenario where NASA comes to me now and says, well, Admiral, we have a somewhat of a problem here. Congress has now said the Apollo project is all well and good, and it's obviously done much for the prestige of the country, but it's too expensive. We can't keep this up anymore, so you're going to get some budget cuts now. And so NASA came to me and they said, Admiral, you can come up with a solution for us. Please, let's see what you can do. We would like to continue the Apollo missions, but obviously we want to save costs drastically. Also, at the same time, we have another requirement, and that is that places like the Michoud assembly facility in New Orleans, of course, places where they build the actual rocket stages and tanks and engines and all of that, we want to keep most of these places in business because there are people working there and we don't want them to lose their jobs. What can you do about this, Admiral? What solutions do you have, if any? And I thought and I said, well, let's see if we can do some magic here. Now, I have no idea if this is going to work, so it might be a total fail, but let's see. Of course, this is not realistic in the least. This will be just me toying around here. Interesting patterns the clouds are making on the ground here. Still, they look so cold, so icy cold. I don't know. I guess these are very high altitude clouds. That's why I'm getting that feeling the whole time. Anyway, it's a fresh new morning here, so let's go into the assembly facility. Actually, first let's go to the tracking station. Just want to show you something. So, got some debris here. This is our testing save where we did all of the Apollo missions and the Eve flyby, so we still have the connection to the orbiter there. But I activated the debris here just to have a look at this. I always love this. Obviously, in real life, this is a really bad thing. We don't want space debris, but here it reminds me of all our adventures together. Let's turn it off. Anyway, so really why I brought you here, I wonder if we could see that now, just because it's dawn here. We're going to have to fast forward and then I will have to just skip again to the next morning. The next patch of KSP, or the next update, is going to bring, as I said yesterday, another launch pad and airfield facility for us. Not a full base like we have at the normal KSC, but still another place to launch from. And they also said where it is in the update, so I certainly recommend for you to go and have a read there. But it's in the desert. You know, I don't know, some of the new players might not know, but once upon a time there was a pyramid complex in the desert that you could go visit, like an Easter egg, and it's pretty much near that where they're going to put the new facility. That complex with the pyramids is not here anymore. That was in an older version of the game, but at least that sort of reminds us of that time. At any rate, so it's the first launch facility in the southern hemisphere, although not very far south. If I have a look here, I think is it right there? It's difficult to see with all the clouds, but we have the desert and then sort of to the southern edge in a little sort of valley again. Then we'll see it there, but it is close to the equator. But very interesting. I love that they add this. I hope they'll keep doing that and give us many more launch facilities, even full bases like with the normal one that we have. That would be interesting if we ever do like individual campaigns, like a science campaign or a full-on, historical game starting with no technology almost. if at the start you pick your base facility and then that's the one you keep for the whole game. That would be very interesting because that will flavor a lot of your experiences. Anyway, that's rambling, so let's go into the VAP and have a look at this monster. Actually, I want to go back to the dawn again. There we go, it's a fresh new day, so it's always a good way to start off. Now, comrades, this is the thing I was toying around with last night. This is just purely me messing around. This is of course our Apollo CSM with a different service module there, and this is all solid fuel. And I really like this idea of placing the solid fuel boosters inside the tanks, which are empty of course. So we can imagine this is one giant solid fuel booster. And of course it doesn't matter now that the nozzles overlap because that's one nozzle. So I thought, couldn't we do something like this with a Saturn V? So that's how I came up with my little scenario there. Now this thing actually does work quite well, I have to say. But let's load up the Saturn V. Right, so there is our final version of the Saturn V. This is the thing that took us to the moon and really worked very well. So I'm very happy with this. Of course, I still have to tweak the whole Venus flyby version of this. But right now, let's have a look at this. So obviously, we want to use, or my plan is to meet NASA's requirement for a cheaper mission by using solid fuel and replacing all of these expensive engines and hydrogen and oxygen and all of this nonsense. Of course, I'm role-playing now. But we want cheap. Cheap is the way to go, but we still want to have this payload go to the moon. That's the requirement because they want to continue the missions. However, instead of just throwing more solid fuel on or doing something else with a rocket, that's where I came up with this idea. We still want to keep the facilities in place that are making these tanks and things, but we just want to use a different fuel source. So let's see if we can get some savings here. So importantly, we start with a cost for each launch of 276,458. So I'm just going to remember the 276. Now, of course, this has no bearing to the real world, but whatever the individual Apollo missions cost, 1 billion or how many hundreds of millions, whatever the case was, we can imagine this is the equivalent in Kerbal bucks. So we want to get this down. Now let's have a look at the craft from the top to the bottom. Now of course we also want to save as much money as possible because that's the requirement. Otherwise Congress is going to cancel this whole project. Now that means we have to make some choices about what we want to throw away. Now, of course, we can't throw away the launch escape system and we can't throw away the command pod or the CSM as a whole. That thing is in place and I'm keeping it as is. The same with the lander, because after all, the Apollo missions are about landing on the moon, so we need a lander and we've worked hard on this and it works well, so we're going to keep that. The next obvious candidate for alteration is the S4B. Now in this case what we can do is reduce its size. I think it will have to be liquid fueled still because it has to be restarted, or at least it has to be throttled and controlled in order to send the craft on a specific course to the moon. So that has to remain. And of course we already have the facility, wherever that was in the real world, building the J2s or the contractor or whatever the case was. So we're going to keep them employed. We will keep the S4B pretty much as it is, but we are going to lose one of the tanks here. Now, doing that in the real world is not an option because the whole thing was full anyway, but in our case we can get rid of it. So we are cost cutting, comrades. So we started with 276, we're down to 274. Not much progress, I'm afraid. But now we get to the real deal, the first and second stage. So let's drop all the fuel out of this and see what difference that has. Not much. All of it. Okay, now we're starting to see some improvement. We've already lost 10% of the cost of the rocket. Let's dump these unnecessary engines. Look at that, 158,000. 136. So these engines, of course you can imagine, they're very expensive to build and, you know, do all the engineering. So 276, we've cut the cost of the rocket in half. There, you see, I'm a miracle worker. NASA could trust me. But now we still have to make the thing fly. We could add more fuel to the S4B as it is now. So I guess this is the S4C now. That's fine, we can do that. But we still have to get it on a near orbital trajectory. So let's see, I want to keep all of these things, these separatrons and all of that. I suppose for realism's sake that would still be necessary. I'll fix the fairing in a moment. But let's get rid of this stage just for now. I like this separating still, so I want to keep that. But these engines, nah, throw them out. We're down to 79,000. That's of course without the first stage. But yes, this is a budget. I was thinking before starting this episode, if I could cut the cost by half, I would consider it a success, a major success, but I didn't want to say that because I didn't know if it was possible, but it seems like it might be. Now, of course, we have to get solid fuel into the mix, so obvious candidate is the kickback. Let's just have a look at the kickback. Now, unfortunately, the kickback is a bit too long for this. What about the thumper? That sort of works. What happens if we... Now, of course, let's just make sure everything here is empty completely. So this is now an entirely empty structure. So we can clip things into it because that's the equivalent of now filling it with solid fuel. Now, these only cost 850 each. So let's throw them on here. Let's be liberal. So how many could we fit in here realistically? 8, I think, because we still have the whole gap here on the top. That gives us a good thrust to weight ratio. Not so much delta V, but okay, it's the start. Let's clip this in now. Now we're filling the tank there, and of course we have one big nozzle on the bottom. Of course we are limited by what KSP can do here, but this I think is relatively realistic, or at least believable, in the sense that we are not putting solid fuel in a full tank already. That's just unreal. Now this tank of course is empty, so I can suspend my disbelief. Is this enough though? Let's have a look at this thing. We need this thing to deliver now almost a kilometer of delta V. Let's undo this. Could we add more? Could we add more? What if we do 6 and 6? Because we still have a lot of empty space here. So let's do 6 and then another 6. Yes. It's a wide diameter, a lot more than the actual boosters here, so as long as it's plausible, kinda. So we move this in and then we do the same with this, with F. Someone on Reddit asked, how do we do this offset thing? You can click here to do the local or absolute, but I just press F. So press F to pay respects or to change your orientation. So move this up. Let's just get the thing looking generally nice. I'd be happy if this thing works, by the way. Now, no, I want it a bit more up than that. Now, in this I'm not going to be too pedantic about details because we're obviously deviating from history here. So there we are. This is now my new S2 stage here. So I've come up with this answer for NASA, and we even create some more jobs, or at least we keep some jobs, because the people working on the liquid fuel and the engines and all of that, they just work on the solid fuel now. Of course, it's not that easy in the real world, but it doesn't have to be in this case. So let's bring it down to 1. Actually, at this stage, we want decent thrust, but it doesn't have to be too high. 138 maybe. I can live with that, because that also means some of these will burn out before the others, so it will not get the thrust too high towards the end of this stage, which is good. We want to pace ourselves here. So now we've done that. That gives us 1.2 kilometers. Now we put this thing back on. Good. We are still confident about that. Now, what exactly? Okay, the staging will work out later. Let's throw this thing on. Now we get another big drama here. Now in this case we want the big kickback boosters, but we are going to have a lot of extra space here, so I think we need to lose some of this tank here, or some of these tank parts. So we shorten the S1 stage. We could shorten it further, but then we have to get rid of these engine cluster adapters, but I want to keep them. Okay, let's try and play with this. So now let's throw these on. Now, how many of these could we logically fit into this tank? Let's try it out. Let's just get rid of this. So let's start with a 6 and 6 again. Yes. Okay, 6 and 6 again. Yes, I think so. Even if they overlap now inside the tank, there's still room for the solid fuel there. So it's generally believable again. Now let's move this in and have a look at just what things are looking like down there. Press F to pay respects. Nope, it was already paying respects. And is that looking okay? Okay, it's staggering them here now. 1.3, so that gives us 2.6 kilometers. Is that decent? I'm wondering, we've gone up in cost again, obviously because of the big tank here. Let's just dump this. Now I'm going to keep these flag parts here, even though they add more to the cost now, the lander cans. So that's how much? 6,000 just for them. You know, if it comes between having to cancel the mission and getting rid of a flag, then I think NASA would rather get rid of the flag than cancel the mission. But anyway, that's another point there. Let's see what we can do here. This still doesn't look quite right for me. Now again, this is all clipping in mad ways. I know it's not as attractive as it should be, but this is a whole re-engineering anyway, we imagine. Of course they won't just put these inside another tank, they'll re-engineer the whole tank to be solid fueled instead of separate boosters inside the tank. Could we add more logically? I know they're clipping heavily in the middle there, but how is the tank looking inside? Do we want to know? There's still a lot of space there, a lot of emptiness there, and of course on the top. Maybe we could add some more. Let's do that. Let's add some of the thumpers, the smaller ones. I know that's not really going to be good, but I want to put them here where these old F1s used to be. And of course they will burn out first, so that will also bring the thrust down a bit later in the flight. So move this in, clipping horribly, I know. Now in this case I want to, why are they 6 now? No, I don't want 6, I want 4. What I want is for them to go outwards like that. Now we're gonna have to do the local offset. Unfortunately, we're gonna have to make it more rolled here. It's still sticking out there. Might be unavoidable. That looks quite strange, but okay. Something of that nature. Yes. Let's move these a bit. So there's going to be a central cluster there, or a central booster of solid fuel, or I don't know if you could have several compartments inside this tank of solid fuel. But then we'll pretend there's a small subsection within the booster which also has solid fuel, but that's just there to give it the initial kick to get off the ground. Why are you overlapping? No, it's fine. It's fine. Just perspective there. Alright, comrades, can we make this work? Is this going to work? Let's have a look at this. So this gives us 1.79. That's what I want to see. It will burn out after 1 minute and 2 seconds because that's the length of time the kickbacks burn. And it gets us 1.4-ish kilometers per second. We're still over 100,000 Kerbal bucks cheaper than the original. So we can still go with this. Now what was it again? 270? 272? Oh, good grief, I've already forgotten the price. What? No, good grief. I don't know. 270 something. I will have a look again just before we launch. Now let's keep all of this. Build the fairing again. And of course the staging is very important here. I also have to rebuild this fairing because we've learned what happens if I don't rebuild it every time. This one should be fine because it actually breaks open there. Now let's just see, is everything good? So we've got the originals and the 6 extras. Okay, then we fire the micro solid fuel boosters, which are actually appropriate now. So we're creating a lot of work for the solid fuel chemists or engineers. No, we don't want you firing at that time as well. So this thing will separate. Then of course we fire this lot in here. Then we separate the skirt here. 2.6 is not bad. We will have to burn more of the S4B, S4C now to get to orbit though. That's fine. We can save more money by dumping this little thing up here, since the solid fuels are shorter than that anyway. So once that's done, what happens? Where's this launch escape system? I'll put right... No, I don't want to put that on the top. That should happen after that. That's right. Now where's this decoupler? I think it's the right one. Then what's this thing? Good grief, I'm not seeing it here. TDO6. Oh, that's the thing on top. Then what's this? Oh, that's the skirt thing. No, this has to go after that. Then that as well. Okay, problem sorted. Then that separates, then those fire, then those fire. Then we have the S4B or C and its auxiliary pack firing. And obviously then we go from there. Separate those, separate that thing, that and all of that. Okay, so I think that will work. Let's just have a look at the fuel situation. This time I have to be more alert to the fuel. So let's see, the total is 4.7. Now again, this will not accurately reflect the delta V of the lander and all of this. My feeling is we should just try and add more here and see what happens. It's not very scientific, I know. Let's make it full. Doesn't have an appreciable difference there. Interesting. Okay, so I'm going to save this as the Saturn V. Oh. Budget. Oh, no. Save. Now, I'm going to open the original. I just want to compare the costs again. Final. Oh, it says it there. So 278. So we have dropped 112,000 from the cost. So not quite half, but I still consider that a win. If it works, by the way. So who's going to be our volunteers? Most of the Kerbals are in space right now from various experiments that I was doing. So we'll have to use Alson, Hermes and Kelly. Now Hermes and Kelly we know very well, but Alson is having her first flight here. So yes, I'll see you on the launch pad, comrades. I wonder actually if this kind of solid fuel, just like the Ares 1 was supposed to be with the, what was it, the crew exploration vehicle and then that giant solid fuel booster, if that wasn't going to be much safer than the shuttle kind of solid fuel booster, because there we had the craft on the side of the thing, whereas here we still have a full launch escape and all of that, and it's on top. I don't know, maybe solid fuel can still have a future. Anyway, and not just as a side booster. Let's save again and launch. Now, comrades, we can certainly see this looks sort of like a dwarf Saturn V because it's much shorter here. But it's still, of course, recognizable to the Kerbal public, so they would still throw their support behind the thing. And I think generally we've met NASA's requirements. We've cut the cost immensely. So for every, let's just figure this out. So it's 160 something now. So for 2 of these launches, I almost want to say they could have done 2 of the previous launches for every 3 that we could do now. So hopefully Congress will be happy, but who knows, they're never happy anyway. So let's try this thing. Of course we now have a major problem with the gimbal. In this case I would, if it doesn't work well, be very happy to add a reaction wheel, a giant one, on the second stage, because we can't gimbal the solid fuel boosters, but in the real world you could do that. So of course we have the fins on the first stage, that will help, but after that we might run into trouble. Let's have a look. So comrades, it's the tradition again, we do the thing. I will play some music perhaps. Yes, I think we could. But I'll do the countdown first. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. No, I think we're going to have to abort. The problem is the second stage did not have enough thrust, so I'm going to have to put all of them on 100% thrust. For some reason that calculation was incorrect. So of course in this case backspace, and we are safe, no problems at all. Of course the thing will continue going now, but that's why we launch towards the ocean here. Okay, so let's try again. Just take off the whole structural tube here. Now this is S11. No. S11 is the escape system. For some reason S13 doesn't show up here. It's because of the engine plate, I think. Kerbal engineer can't calculate that correctly. 100% thrust, that should work. Let's just add a reaction wheel in here. We can pretend this is the instrumentation unit compensating, of course, if it sees that we're going off course. Okay, there's no snap point there, unfortunately. We'll have to make one. So we have a look in here. Could we not? Oh, no. It's not going to snap to all 6 of those things. So, of course, our friend, the strut there. And now actually could I put this in like this? Okay, that doesn't have to be 100% precise. So move this down. Of course we lose it before we get to the liquid fueled stage, so in that case it still maintains my wish to not really use reaction wheels for the upper stages. Now where did the thing go now? Didn't actually snap there. Gonna have to look inside. It's impossible to tell when it snaps. Let's have a look again. Is that right? Okay, it's not protruding anywhere, so I think it's right. Of course it adds more cost, but only 2,000. So save again and go again. No need for ceremony this time, comrades. Let's just do the launch. I'll put it on full throttle for the S4C now, but of course we won't need it at first. No, I think it's another fail, comrades. The S4C is not powerful enough. We've already passed our apoapse and the rate that we're accelerating is too slow. We're just going to fall back to Kerbal now. But I'm happy with the first and second stages. That was something, I guess. It's just with the extra fuel, this thing really can't cope very well. So we need a new engine. Let's hope that Congress won't object. Okay, well, so the requirement, of course, will have to remain the same. This engine has to be restartable. So let's just have a look. What is the thrust details about this thing? So in a vacuum, which technically it's not quite a vacuum by the time this thing starts its burn, but it's very high atmosphere, so I think we can count it as a vacuum. So that's 300 kilonewtons. So we need something a bit more powerful than that. The Bobcat, the Titan II first stage engine has 400 kilonewtons, but that one is not really restartable. Of course, now this is fiction anyway, so it doesn't matter. I wonder, should we go with that? Of course, the more obvious answer is the skipper, our old friend. That weighs 3 tons, so the extra mass is going to be a bit of a problem. The skiff is only 1 ton. Then we might as well put 2 of the skiffs on. It's also much cheaper, 1,500 versus 5,300, so forget the skipper. The Bobcat is 2,000 and it weighs 2 tons. But for 2 skiffs, yes, it's a bit more expensive, but for the same weight we could get 600 thrust, which is 200 more than the Bobcat. So maybe we'll just use the existing technology. We'll just double it. It is a bit more costly, but at the end of the day, that is not such a great expense in addition to the existing equipment. Now, I can't remember, where does this thing attach now? There it is, obviously the answer there. Let's undo that, if it will, yes. And then, somehow I just need to get the thing there. We want to keep all of that, we just need to double this. So still lighter than the skipper. Now, of course, we want to keep that kind of a dome shape there. So could we use one of these? It's a bit more weight now, but that's only 80 kilograms and 450 Kerbal bucks. And then two of these moved in, of course. Now that adapter is not necessary, but for the appearance sake. Although I'm sort of thinking it looks better without it. That adapter can sort of be the fuel thing that distributes the fuel to the engines. I'm not sure, because we do have this side fuel pump thing there, so I suppose let's put it in this configuration and then move it a bit inwards. I think that can work. Most of it is still free and it looks very nice. Okay, there we have a bit of clipping now. Oh man, it's not even aligned properly. Try again. Let's see if we can fulfill the mission that NASA has asked us to do. So I'm happy with that. That will give us a lot more thrust there and we can burn to orbit much more efficiently. Now hopefully we will have enough fuel to complete the burn, the insertion burn to the moon. If that happens, I'm not going to play the rest of the mission. I just want to see if we can pull this whole thing off. If that happens, oh sure, no. If that happens, then I'll consider it a success. Now, let's keep the spacing as it was. Then again, more fairing equals more mass. No, move it. That's at least how I think it works. If you have more fairings, it will add more mass. Of course, we're not sure in KSP. What the... No. This will not suffice. You are supposed to snap to that point now. Okay, so now it solves the problem of the length anyway. Let's just move this thing out. Oh, can't right click. That's it. That fits nicely, and now we just say edit fairing, which we anyway would have to do. Good, now this stuff needs to be turned in a little. Don't want to see those pylon things. And then of course this just has to be turned back up, so we don't burn into the S4C. Good. Alright, that's it. So I think save again and just rebuild the fairing on the top because reasons. And edit fairing, just throw the thing back on. Just do it on the side there, like that. And check that everything has happened as it should have happened. Now where is that? So that thing, I think so. Famous last words and all that. Let's see, let's find out. I'm not going to stand on ceremony again, comrades. I'll just begin the launch. So save again and let's hope for the best. Ah, comrades, so we've made it. We are here. At least the thing worked this time. The only thing that sort of worries me now is, of course, we're still using the Werner engines here, and they burn liquid fuel. Now, my question is, oh no, of course, shows you how quickly I get lost in my own creations here. I was thinking, now, where are they getting liquid fuel from, because we're using solid fuel, but we're not using solid fuel on this stage, of course, so never mind. The only thing I now want to find out is whether we have enough delta V to get us to the moon. Now, this thing says we have 1300, but okay, what's that? That's a Soyuz debris coming at us with some speed. That's interesting. Okay, well, it's going on an angle, it seems. So, yes, I'm not sure how this delta V is calculated, if it's taking the CSM as well, I'm not sure. So let's just plan the thing out. I'm not going to do the transposition and docking and all that now. This is not a full mission. Okay, something like that. Let's just switch over to the moon. And it seems okay, we come around here, and of course it's retrograde. It's a little too high. Of course we want a collision, so that'll do. There, that's all I want to do, nothing more than that. So put it on a maneuver node, please. In 11 minutes for 47 seconds. Now this thing says 1 minute 10 seconds. Now again, that's total. So I'm not sure, but it doesn't say any figure for the current, so it doesn't quite know what to make of these new engines, I guess. Let's fast forward. Okay, so this burn is obviously going to have more kick to it than normal because of the extra engine. Bang, there we go. So just over 1G, that's not terrible. Let's just see if it makes it. If it does, I will consider this mission success, and I want my check from NASA. Please. I want that NASA money. That would now be American taxpayer money, but let's see if it works first. It does look like it will, and we'll have some fuel left over for spare. So I've just shaved almost half of the cost of a Saturn V launch, and it still can do the same thing. Am I not good? Well, let's not praise myself too much. This is just a bit of fun. Okay, are we still on a collision? Yes, we are. Everything is good. We have extra fuel for 23 seconds, and Saturn, this would probably be a new Saturn, or what would they call this? This was obviously never a proposed project like the MLV and all of those things. This would be Saturn 6? No, not really. Still uses most of the same equipment and all of that, but Saturn VB, let's call it that. So, comrades, let's just separate this. I want to see if it just works properly. It works properly, and of course there's the docking. I said I wasn't going to do it, but let's try quickly. Number 1 key as normal. We can see we are drifting off center. It's just the way it goes, so have to compensate for that. Now let's find out if this will work. That looks like it should. Just slow it down. Come on. Oh, no, it does that bug thing again where it kicks it away. I think they are aware of this, so hopefully they will fix that. But if you dock more directly facing the port, then you don't get this problem. But okay, never mind that. The booster redesign is a success in my book. So, comrades, what do you think about this? Do you think Congress would still fund NASA with this? Do you think we've met the brief that we were given? I think so. It's not quite half price, but it's on the way there. So a bit of fun, comrades. I hope to see you next time. Thank you as always for your continued support and comments, and I hope you'll have a fantastic weekend, of course, and a week ahead. So see you next time, comrades.